pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Dankert.
Mayor Steen.
Present.
Councilmember Large Anderson. Councilmember Helly.
Present.
Hagan. Fisher.
Present.
Enright.
Present.
King.
Present.
Austin.
Present.
We have a quorum, Your Honor.
Thank you. Item 1 is a motion for adoption of the agenda. We need a motion.
So, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Under public hearings, approving preliminary and final plat for Austin Marketplace. Ms. Wallace.
Your Honor and council members, at the October 22nd, 2018 meeting of the Austin Planning Commission, the commission reviewed a preliminary and final plat for proposed Austin Marketplace. This area has been platted to accommodate redevelopment of the former Hy-Vee grocery store and surrounding property. The primary purpose of the plat is to delineate the boundaries of the property as subdivided into new lots for redevelopment and future development. After review with 8 planning commission members present, there was a unanimous vote of 8 recommending approval of the preliminary and final plat with the following conditions: that any private or additional easements and access agreements be entered into by separate agreement and recorded with the plat, and that the city will enforce any required development standards in that platted area. And then I just put up on the overhead the existing outlined in yellow lots, and that's the area that's being replatted. And then the proposed plat, lays out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different lots that coincide more with the current usage of the property. Do you have any questions?
Questions? Council? Some questions or comments? If not, we need a resolution.
So move the resolution.
Second. Mr. Tom?
Councilmember Helly.
Aye.
Fisher.
Aye.
Enright.
Aye.
King.
Aye.
Austin.
Aye.
Resolution passes 5-0, Your Honor.
Thank you. Under petitions and request, number 3 is looks like a motion and a request on a potentially dangerous dog appeal from Chai Fong. I'm guessing that's Mr. Fong here. You can have a seat. We'll get you in a second. Craig, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. When these matters come up, the council sits in what's called a quasi-judicial position, which means that you are now in the position of sort of a judge of this matter, a finder of fact, and an applier of the local ordinance. Our local ordinance, section 1010, describes potentially dangerous dogs or animals. And one of the criteria for designating an animal as such is if the animal has bitten a human or a domestic animal on any public or private property. So what has occurred here is that local law enforcement has investigated a bite incident and has recommended the animal in question be designated as a potentially dangerous animal under that ordinance. They have served a notice of that designation on the animal's owner, and the owner has appealed that decision, essentially asking the council to overrule law enforcement and determine that this animal does not meet the definition under the ordinance. It is important, I think, for you to recognize that many times when we have these types of issues, we are dealing with a dangerous animal as opposed to a potentially dangerous animal. And that's important because a potentially dangerous animal is a designation that we apply to animals that we believe have the potential to cause serious harm. It is essentially a warning to the animal owner that we have documented one incident that was of great concern, and the next incident will result in dangerous animal designation. As you can recall from those past hearings on dangerous animal designations, those generally result in either the destruction of the animal or very onerous requirements on the owner if they would like to keep the animal, such as fencing requirements and kenneling requirements and chips, and what usually trips up the owner is extremely expensive insurance in case the dog bites again. So tonight we're only dealing with potentially dangerous, which while that is serious because the next time if the dog bites again, it'll be a dangerous animal at that point. At this point, the potentially dangerous label just is a designation of that animal as something to be watched for future concerns. So with that, I'm going to call a couple of witnesses, and I'm going to start out with Ryan Life. Can you come up here, sir? This microphone here. You state your name for the record, please.
Ryan Life.
And are you employed by the Austin Police Department?
Yes, I am.
In what capacity?
Patrol officer.
On or about September 27th, 2018, at about 11 o'clock in the morning, did you receive some sort of communication about a potential dog bite incident?
Yes, I did.
And as a result of receiving that information, where did you go or what did you do?
I had to go to the MCHS Austin ER.
And while there, did you meet with a lady named Susan K. Gilbertson?
Yes, I did.
And did Ms. Gilbertson describe to you that she had been bitten by a dog?
Yes, she did.
When she made that description to you, did she indicate that she was familiar with the dog and the owner to some extent?
Yes, she was familiar with them, but did not know his name or their residence.
She didn't know the owner's name, but did she tell you that she knew the dog's name?
Yes, she believed the dog was a female Rottweiler named Maya.
Do you recall where she said that she was when she was bitten?
She said she was on a walk. She was heading southbound in the 400 block of First Street Southwest, heading down to the Bandshell Park there.
Did you take a photograph of her arm?
Yes, I did.
I'm going to put this on the Elmo. Does that appear to be the photograph that you took of Ms. Gilbertson's arm?
Yes, it does.
And we see an injury there. Did she explain to you how that injury came about?
Yes, she did.
What did she tell you?
She stated, well, she was on her walk. She crossed the street to say hi to the owner. She was familiar with the dog and has met the dog before. And she bent over to pet the dog and stated she had a plastic bag on her arm that she possibly might have startled the dog and caused it to bite, but she had never had any issues with the dog in the past.
By plastic bag on her arm, what did you understand that to mean?
Be like a grocery bag of some kind.
Just
that she's
hanging off
carrying.
her arm?
Yeah, hanging off her arm.
So this wound on her arm, she told you, was caused by a Rottweiler named Maya.
Correct.
And she was in the 400 block of First Street Southwest when that happened.
Correct.
Okay. You, of course, wrote up an incident report after that occurred,
Yes, I did.
and you kept that as part of the police file and records.
Yes.
And it's important when you fill out those documents that you be complete in all the information
Correct.
that you've learned as part of your investigation. For the council's reference, the copy of the police report is in the hands of Ann Kazel and will be part of this record for today, but it basically tells you exactly what Mr. Life has told you here today. All right, thank you, Mr. Life. Before you sit down, I want to just tell Mr. Fong, if you have any questions of Mr. Life, you can ask him questions right now. Okay, so why don't I give you this microphone then? You can stay in your seat if you want. You can keep answering questions from up there.
Well, I have two
So,
questions.
Sure, so right now is not for you to tell your story, but just to ask him questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did the lady say, who, I don't even know who she is. She said she went to the ER, right?
Correct.
If my dog, I want to submit it for the,
All right, Mr. Fong, we can use this in a minute.
Yeah.
Just if you have questions, I'll keep it here. But if you have questions for Mr. Life before he has a seat.
My dog had bitten her. I would have taken her to the emergency myself. I didn't even know. And I wouldn't be, I mean, it wouldn't be, you know, because I always with my dog when she's out.
Right.
That was one question.
Well, Mr. F-
Another one is, I don't even know who she is. I've never met her.
Mr. Byron, when does the council ask the officer questions? At the end or now?
Yeah, we can do that as soon as Mr. Fong's done. Mr. Fong, you've stated that you don't believe that this was your dog and that you have not met Ms. Gilbertson, but do you have any questions that Mr. Life can answer?
Yeah, I
Otherwise,
would like her to be here.
okay,
So I can answer myself.
sure. All right, now it's time for the council to ask Mr. Life questions if you have any.
I don't even know who she is.
How old is the dog?
I'm
know-
not sure. CSO Hindall gathered that information.
Okay.
After, he did follow up. I was on my days
And he'll
off.
be talking after
Yes.
you? Okay. We can ask. You don't know how long they've owned it or anything then?
I do not.
Okay. Okay. Do you know if it was provoked or unprovoked? Was there anything that provoked the dog, or was it?
According to what she said, she bent over to pet the dog as she's met the dog in the past, and she thinks maybe that plastic bag type grocery bag or hanging on her arm might have startled it, but
Okay, I'd like to understand the process a little better. If somebody goes to the hospital and is treated for a dog bite, they have to call the police, right?
correct,
And then police have to make a report, right?
correct.
On every report that they make of a dog bite, is the dog labeled a potentially dangerous dog?
Yes.
Automatically?
Yes.
With the report?
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions? Anybody else? So, I mean, it didn't sound like there were circumstances here, but I mean, if there were circumstances like somebody stepped on the dog's tail or something, and the dog turned around and nipped them and drew a little bit of blood,
Right,
they would still be a potentially dangerous dog, and then would take it here to not get that designation, right?
right.
Okay, okay. Anybody else? Okay.
All right, thank you, Mr. Life. Bronson Hindle, you step up here, please. Mr. Hindle, can you state your name for the record?
Bronson Heindel?
Hindle, sorry. Are you employed by the Austin Police Department?
Yes.
And in what capacity? What's your title?
Community Service Officer?
As part of your job as community service officer, do you often go and investigate these sorts of incidences?
Yes.
In this particular case, did you follow up after Mr. Life was at the medical clinic? And did you meet with Mr. Fong?
Yes.
Okay, and you see him sitting here?
Yep.
That's the gentleman you met with? And when you met with him, did Mr. Fong have a Rottweiler type dog, I guess, named Maya?
Yes, he did agree to me at the door.
I'm going to put a picture here. Did you take this picture?
Yes, I did.
And is that the dog that's owned by Mr. Fong?
Yes.
And is that dog named Maya as far as you know?
Yes.
And does that dog reside at 409 First Street Southwest?
Yes.
Okay, so in the 400 block of First Street where Ms. Gilbertson said she was bitten.
Yes.
Did you have any conversations with Mr. Fong about this dog as far as we've heard questions, how old is the dog, how long has he owned it, that sort of thing?
Yes.
What can you share with the council about that information?
I started off by asking him if he has a dog, clearly I seen the dog when I went to the door. I asked him if he remembered a bite that occurred within the last week. It was a couple days afterwards that I followed up on it because I was off. He said he didn't recall a bite that happened. And I also met with his caretaker a Jerome Hendris, who also said he didn't remember a bite that happened. And I just informed him that another officer, Officer Life, took a report of a bite that did happen, which his dog was named.
And again, just so we have it clear here, Ms. Gilbertson says she was bit by a dog owned by an Asian gentleman on the 400 block of 1st Street Southwest. The dog was a black Rottweiler type dog named Maya, but the owner of that dog, Mr. Fong, and his caretaker both deny that the bite happened.
Correct.
Did you follow up then again with Ms. Gilbertson?
Yes, I did.
Did you show her pictures of Mr. Fong's animal?
Yes, I did.
Did she confirm for you that that was the pictures of the animal who bit her?
Yes, she did.
Did you serve Mr. Fong with a copy of the local notice of potentially dangerous animal?
Yes.
I'll show you this document here. Maybe hard to read up on the big screen, but is that the notice that you gave to Mr. Fong?
Yes.
Down in the lower left-hand corner, do you see a signature for Mr. Fong?
Yes.
Is that his signature?
Yes, it is.
And did you fill out this form?
Yes.
So you have checked the box that is your recommendation that this animal be labeled as a potentially dangerous animal because it bit someone on public or private property, correct?
Correct.
Is that really the sole basis for your recommendation, that this dog bit someone on public or private property?
Correct.
All right, I don't have any other questions for Bronson here. Mr. Fong, do you want to ask him any questions?
No, I'm Matthew.
All right. Counsel, do you have any questions?
I got a couple. Do you know how old the dog is?
Yeah, 7 years old.
7. And how long?
As stated by Mr. Fong.
How long has he owned it?
7 years
7 years?
since it was a puppy.
Okay. Was the picture, was that taken right after the bite, or was that
That's when I did the follow-up. That was a few days after, I think 3 or 4 days.
3 or 4 days after? Was there, because it does, I see the laceration, but there's no bruising there. A lot of times there's bruising if the dog will grab on.
The picture was taken by Officer Life, and that was at the hospital.
Okay, so
at
that
the,
would have been before it would have set in. Okay. Okay. You don't know if it bruised up, I'm sure it did. Okay. Is it common, how many potentially dangerous dogs do we have? We must have quite a few of them then, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure an exact number.
Okay, but it's pretty common.
Yep.
Okay.
How
That's
did
about
you
it.
find Mr. Fong's address and residence and connect it? Because all you knew was the dog's
Right.
name, right?
Yep. I talked to Susan and she described the area that it was. I went into the area and Susan also described where another officer used to live. And he said it was right across the street. So I basically went to that address, went across the street to the house that she described, and knocked on the door and ran the license plates that were in the driveway. They came back to an Asian male. So that's when I went up to and knocked on the door and met Mr. Fong.
Okay.
And as far as you're aware, this is unprovoked. I mean, there was no,
Correct.
even a story about how that could have been
Correct.
something, or no, it's completely unprovoked.
I think where the confusion lies is Susan was wearing like a sweatshirt and it bit her through the sweatshirt.
Okay.
And she didn't notice she had the bite until after she was down the street, is what she
Okay.
explained to me.
Okay. That would make the bite a little bit harder, though, if it had to be through a sweatshirt. Okay. Have you ever had any calls on this dog before that you're
No.
aware of?
I
Any of
haven't.
the neighbors say, yeah, that's, that's been a problem or anything as you're going through your...
I didn't talk to any of the neighbors about the dog.
Okay. Anybody else? How long you been a CSO?
Year and a half about.
Okay. Okay, anybody else?
Thank you for
Okay,
that.
Greg?
You can have your seat.
Thank you.
Mr. Fong has provided me with a note that he alleges is written by a man named Dave Champlin. Is that right? Okay, who's his next door neighbor. And I'll just go ahead and read it to the council. My name is Dave Champlin. I live next door to Mr. Fong. In my experience with the dog, I or my family has not had any issues. I have never seen the dog unattended. It seems to me the dog is not a hazard to anyone that approaches it in a normal way with the owner present. sincerely, and it looks to be signed. So take that for whatever you want to take
The
that
owner
for.
wasn't present during this incident, right?
Well, Ms. Gilbertson says that she bent down to pet this animal in the presence of the Asian male that she
Okay.
was familiar with who owned
So he was present.
the animal. Mr. Fong states that he does not recall any incident and does not feel that he's familiar with a Ms. Gilbertson. So
Okay.
that's the two stories that we
He
have.
doesn't recall the incident? Is that what he just stated?
Yeah, and he can now testify if he would like.
Okay.
Do you want to step up, Mr. Fong, and tell the council anything you want to tell the council about this issue?
You know, how serious the big mark on the arm of the lady.
How serious is it?
Yeah. I mean, if I were there with my dog, I would have taken her to the hospital.
Yeah, but she had a sweater on, so you wouldn't have seen it, they said. That's what the CSO said. You probably, we're aware of that.
My hearing.
Oh, okay. The mayor said that the community service officer indicated that Ms. Gilbertson was wearing a sweatshirt that covered up her wound.
But
But
you.
the question would be, do you remember being on the street with your dog, with
Oh,
a lady petting your dog?
I think the neighborhood there. I walk my dog for an hour every day
You walk
Yeah,
yourself
with
an hour every day with the dog?
with
Yes.
the dog. Yeah.
Do you remember ever talking with a lady?
No, I'm new here.
Do you remember a lady petting your dog?
No,
You don't remember a dog biting a lady on the arm?
no, I would have taken her to the hospital because this is not me.
Do you keep your dog on a leash?
Huh?
Do you keep your dog on a leash when you're out
Yeah.
walking?
Mm-hmm. When
Always
I
on a
walk her
leash.
always. But she's the house dog
She's a house dog.
all the time.
But she's a big house dog, and I think one of the things that we have, can you understand when I'm talking to you?
Yeah.
Okay, one of the things that we've dealt with dogs before are big, strong dogs, and people, very nice people, just don't either know enough about dogs or just aren't capable of taking care of a dog. Now, I know a Rottweiler, I had a nephew that had one, and they're nice dogs, but they require a lot of obedience and a lot of training and a firm hand, and I'm wondering if they're getting that from you. And that's why I'm a dog advocate. I like dogs, but anything unprovoked, I mean, I'm in favor of upholding it just because of the unprovoked nature and the size of the dog.
Yeah, but
and the fact that you're not aware of it even concerns me more.
well, this is the second Rottweiler I owned.
Mm-hmm.
The other one lived 16 years,
Yeah.
and this one, she's now 7.
Yeah, yeah, I know, but she bit somebody, and that's
You know,
an issue.
the first one I had was 16 years old because
Mr.
he
Farr,
passed.
you understand that if we uphold this designation, which I'm assuming we're going to, but they have to vote, and I don't even vote, but I'm assuming we will, if your dog doesn't bite anybody else, you'll be okay. If it bites somebody else, the dog is there'll be a good chance it gets put down. So you have to be very careful with this dog after this.
I
It
understand
will
that.
get put down if it bites somebody else. You'll be able to walk out of here today, you'll be able to keep your dog, right? I mean, somebody correct me if I'm wrong. You won't have to do any high insurance or anything, but we know if another officer goes over there and takes another dog bite call, we'll know that it happened again, and they'll take your dog away from you. That's what happens here. So
That's
right
why
now,
I'm worried, yeah.
yeah, and we don't want to see that happen. I don't want to see that happen. But you need to take care of that dog, and apparently you're not up to it right now. So you might think about maybe somebody taking your dog. That might not be a bad idea.
Well, I came from Los Angeles.
Okay.
I always have dog,
Yeah. I
pit
know.
bull,
Okay.
and my dog never have spearing anyone.
You're probably a very good owner, and this is probably an aberration, but I'm pretty sure it's, we're still gonna probably uphold, like I say, I'm assuming we're probably gonna have to uphold this designation. I think that would be, I'm for upholding it, let me put it that way. Anybody else wanna talk to Mr. Fong?
Are there other Rottweilers in your neighborhood?
Huh?
Are there other Rottweilers in your neighborhood? Do any of your neighbors have a dog that looks like your
No.
dog? No.
My next door neighbor on the right hand side had a pit bull, and this gentleman there,
This one?
he had two dogs, but he had the fence area in the back.
You don't have a fenced area for your dog,
No.
do you? Yeah.
No, mine live in the house.
Yeah, but it has to
Inside,
go,
yeah.
it doesn't go to the bathroom in the house, it's gotta go out, right?
Well, I always with her.
Okay, wow, okay. But it
Okay.
bit somebody. Are you disputing this is your dog that bit this lady?
Pardon me?
You're not disputing this is your dog, is it,
No.
that bit the lady? Okay. Okay. Anybody else? Mr. Byram, what do we do next then?
I think he is disputing.
Yeah.
He is disputing this. He's saying it was not his dog.
Are you saying that it wasn't your dog?
Yeah, I don't think it was my dog because
Well, okay. Does anybody want to ask the officer more questions? I'm satisfied it's his dog, but if anybody has any questions, the officer's right there. It could be your dog, though. You think, is it possible it
Yeah.
could be your dog?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's not impossible, right?
Well, I always part, but
Okay.
I don't think so. But
Okay. I don't have any more questions.
If you want, you can have a seat, Mr. Fong. Thank you. All right, so now it's up to the council to make a decision on whether this particular dog, a Rottweiler-type dog named Maya, is potentially dangerous. It comes down to a question of whether you believe it is more likely than not that this is a dog that did bite unprovoked Ms. Gilbertson. There is a clear disagreement, I guess, between the two sides in this case on whether it was Maya owned by Mr. Fong. However, I would point to the following. Ms. Gilbertson immediately identified, Ms. Gilbertson said she was in the 400 block of First Street Southwest on a walk near her home when she was bitten. She identified an elderly Asian man who she claimed she was somewhat familiar with, however, she did not know his name. She claimed that she was familiar with his Rottweiler-type dog, who she did know the name Maya. So while sometimes it's hard to know that we connected the dots with perfection, those dots start to lead us towards Mr. Fong and his dog. Community service officer indicated that based upon that information, based upon being in the neighborhood, based upon the fact that Ms. Gilbertson identified someone she knew who lived across the street from the house where the dog lived, all of the facts bring us to Mr. Fong and his dog. Mr. Fong, of course, claims not to remember meeting Ms. Gilbertson or that his dog bit Ms. Gilbertson, but you might think about why Mr. Fong might take that position in a situation where things are looking a little bleak. So, on behalf of the recommendation made by law enforcement that this be a potentially dangerous dog, I think that you have facts before you that suggest that this animal, Maya, owned by Mr. Fong, has bitten a person on public or private property. Mayor's questions about provocation are certainly something that you can consider. It is much more concerning if a dog bites someone totally unprovoked. In this case, no one suggests that there was provocation. Mr. Fong says he doesn't remember this occurring, so he can't allege that the woman poked the dog or stepped on the dog or did something to provoke a bite. The woman offers up as an explanation that she had a bag on her arm and that that bag may have seemed odd or something to the dog. That's her way of coming to terms with why a dog she felt she was familiar with bit her in the arm. If you look at the photograph, this is not a minor injury that this lady underwent. These are puncture wounds and tear wounds that they're pretty good wounds. Sometimes we see much smaller injuries that we consider whether that bite causes a dog to be potentially dangerous. This dog caused some significant wounds to this woman. I do not want to minimize how serious it is to label a dog as potentially dangerous, because once you have the label, as the mayor said, the next bite's not free anymore. The next bite becomes very serious business for the dog. However, from a public policy standpoint, dogs are unpredictable, and dogs whose unpredictability results in serious injuries to humans is why we have this ordinance to put the label on the dog, to tell the owner, be very, very cautious and serious about your dog from now on. At least on one occasion, your dog has acted in a way that's very dangerous, and so be very careful going forward. If you don't label the dog, that message is not sent, and that owner now feels less, I guess, urgency to be careful with their animal. The reality is, with all dogs, they are unpredictable. They are animals, and this is just what happens when humans and animals live together, but that's why we have an ordinance to apply these labels. So with that, it's up to the council to debate and decide whether the facts are present in this case to determine that this dog owned by Mr. Fong bit someone and should be labeled.
Counsel.
Just to clarify then, so the only, I guess, consequence for Mr. Fong, if we uphold this, is that the dog carries the label. If it never bites anybody ever again and remains, as he says, a good dog or whatever, then there's no consequences other than it just carries the label.
That is correct.
Okay, so if it does bite somebody, then that's when issues arise.
We have to decide whether to give this dog 2 strikes, basically.
Well,
Well, the first of 2 strikes, yeah.
The first of 2, because the next one he might not put him out, but it could potentially.
Well, I mean, and you understand that. You're not going to have your dog taken away or destroyed unless it bites another person or kills a dog or something. Okay.
I didn't hear you.
We're not taking your dog away from you. We're just labeling it potentially dangerous.
Yeah,
But
I
that's,
understood that, but they said the next time, because if the next time they will take the dog or destroy it,
yep, probably.
that what worry me because
Well, good. We want it to worry you. That's a good thing. We don't want your dog biting anybody
I don't
else.
think it really my dog on this time. That's
Everybody-
why
I know. I know you.
I
love
don't
your
want the
dog.
first time or the second time.
Okay, anybody else?
I'd make a
No,
motion
thank
that
you.
based on the clear and convincing evidence, in my view, of that we affirm potentially dangerous dog designation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? Is this a motion? Pardon? Let's do a resolution. Okay,
Councilmember Helly,
Aye.
Fisher,
Aye.
Enright,
Aye.
King,
Aye.
Austin.
Aye.
Resolution passes 5-0, Your Honor.
all right, and so we're done with you, Mr. Fong? Fong. So if you have any questions, I think, Brian, would you, the police chief will help you with it, or the officer out in the hallway. Okay? Thank you for your time. Don't take care of that dog. We don't want to see it back here, because one of the worst things we have to do is put down dogs. Thank you for coming in. All right. Where are we at here? Under petitions and requests, number 4, setting, let them out of here first. Setting plans, qualifications, and rates for city health insurance effective January 1, 19. Craig.
Thank you, Mayor. Members, essentially, we had to schedule a special meeting with you based on our open enrollment, which we planned for November 7th, and kind of work back from there, so appreciate your accommodation so we can move this along expeditiously. We have a series of resolutions setting rates for our health insurance and approving the MOUs with the bargaining groups. We bid out health insurance. We did that 3 years ago. We're required to do that every 5, but knowing where we were at on our claims history, we wanted to try to get the most favorable rates we could for the city and employees. As you also know, we've had about $1.6 million in funds we've needed to transfer to shore up the healthcare account. These are some significant losses, and the city has taken those seriously and moved towards making changes. We really appreciate council's support in those transfers, as well as supporting negotiations with the bargaining groups to ensure flexibility for plan changes. We did make plan changes in the prior year. Unfortunately, they weren't significant enough to result in cost controls that we'd hoped, and as far as claims are concerned. Our options then really was most beneficial after the bids came in to move to a fully insured plan through the Public Employees Program. This represents about 32,000 public employees, so it's a broad pool to help spread the risk for the city, and then remove the self-insured component of the losses that we've seen here in the past. They were not able to continue Plan C, that was a contract provision within the bargaining groups, and as a result, that necessitated us moving to ask for the MOAs from the various bargaining groups. It is a very similar plan design, and we think in some ways better, but it was a change and therefore necessitates the MOU approvals. We do also want to thank the union representatives for their approvals of the MOAs, and recognize that healthcare is one of the primary considerations for total compensation for employees, and also the recognition of the financial situations that the city's been placed in. It's been kind of a long process to get here today, but appreciate all the efforts on both sides. We just need a series of resolutions from the council setting the rates for both bargaining groups and non-aligned city employees, as well as the various MOAs from the bargaining groups. So rather laborious task to move through these in resolutions, but be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? If not, we'll start with these resolutions. 4A, a resolution setting plans, qualifications, and rates for city health insurance effective January 1st. We need a resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Dankert.
Councilmember Helly.
Aye.
Fisher.
Aye.
Enright.
Aye.
King.
Aye.
Austin.
Aye.
Resolution passes 5-0, Your Honor.
4B is a resolution adopting health insurance plans and required employee contributions for non-bargaining unit employees. We need a motion.
Resolution.
Resolution.
So move the resolution.
Is there a second? Mr. Dankert.
Councilmember Helly.
Aye.
Fisher.
Aye.
Enright.
Aye.
King.
Aye.
Austin.
Aye.
Resolution passes 5-0.
4C, resolution approving a memorandum of agreement with Law Enforcement Labor Services. Need a motion. Resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Tom?
Councilmember Helly.
Aye.
Fisher.
Aye.
Enright.
Aye.
King.
Aye.
Austin.
Aye.
Resolution passes 5-0, Your Honor.
D, resolution approving a memorandum of agreement with UAW 867 Street and Sewer Maintenance. Need a resolution?
So move the resolution.
Second.
Tom?
Councilmember Helly.
Aye.
Fisher.
Aye.
Enright.
Aye.
King.
Aye.
Austin.
Aye.
Resolution passes 5-0, Your Honor.
Thank you. E, approving a memorandum of agreement with UAW 867 Parks. We need a resolution.
So move the resolution.
Is there a
Second.
Mr. Dankert.
Councilmember Helly.
Aye.
Fisher.
Aye.
Enright.
Aye.
King.
Aye.
Austin.
Aye.
Resolution passes 5-0, Your Honor.
Thank you. F, approving a memorandum of agreement with UAW 867 wastewater treatment plant. Need a resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Dankert.
Councilmember Helly.
Aye.
Fisher.
Aye.
Enright.
Aye.
King.
Aye.
Austin.
Aye.
Resolution passes 5-0, Your Honor.
G, approving a memorandum of agreement with FSME Local 2566. We need a resolution.
So move the resolution.
Second.
Mr. Dankert.
Councilmember Helly.
Aye.
Fisher.
Aye.
Enright.
Aye.
King.
Aye.
Austin.
Aye.
Resolution passes 5-0, Your Honor.
Thank you. H is a resolution approving a memorandum of agreement with IAFF. We need a resolution.
So move the resolution.
Second.
Mr. Dankert.
Councilmember Helly.
Aye.
Fisher.
Aye.
Enright.
Aye.
King.
Aye.
Austin.
Aye.
Resolution passes 5-0.
Thank you. I, approving a memorandum of agreement with Austin Police Department Supervisory Unit. Need a resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Dankert.
Councilmember Helly.
Aye.
Fisher.
Aye.
Enright.
Aye.
King.
Aye.
Austin.
Aye.
Resolution passes 5-0, Your Honor.
Thank you. J is a resolution approving a memorandum of agreement with Austin Employees Association. We need a resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Dankert.
Councilmember Helly.
Aye.
Fisher.
Aye.
Enright.
Aye.
King.
Aye.
Austin.
Aye.
Resolution passes 5-0, Your Honor.
Are there any citizens that want to address the, there's not even any citizens, so we're not going to.
They count as citizens, don't they?
Okay, George, what'd you think of this? There's no George either, so we're not even going to do reports and recommendations. We don't need that. We'll just take a motion to adjourn till Monday, November 5th.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.